Okay, can you hear me? All right, I think it's noontime. I think we can get rolling.
Yep.
Excellent. Good morning, or I should say good afternoon. My name is Roberto Mendizabal. I'm part of the solutions group at EMC that develops and validates Microsoft integrated solutions.
Hi, my name is Giri Baswa. I'm a senior manager, partner integration engineering at EMC, focusing on Microsoft integration.
Yeah. So today's session is going to cover Hyper-V private cloud management best practices as it relates to enterprise storage. Our agenda today is going to take us through current data center challenges. Some of you may have heard some of the challenges outlined in the keynote speaking session on Monday. And so we're going to be touching upon some of those challenges that we see as you're beginning to deploy your private clouds in your environments. Suddenly you're having different technologies coming all together in your deployments, and one of the things that you will need is a management and monitoring layer to be able for you to have a good management and view into these elements. We're also going to be talking about, how do you efficiently deploy your Microsoft private cloud within your environment. There are three ingredients that need to be there for you to be able to do this efficiently: automated provisioning, intelligent monitoring, as well as efficient management. We're going to be touching on some of the technologies and integration points that EMC and Microsoft has that facilitates that functionality that will enable you to efficiently deploy your private cloud within your environments. Again, a lot of different technologies coming in together into your data center, and some of those key points, simply need to be there. And we're going to be doing some cool demos. We're also going to be talking about some of the technical integration points, and we're going to be expanding onto some of the things that you need to do to facilitate that, as well as some of the EMC integration that we have with System Center, as well as some of the mission-critical applications that Microsoft has: SQL Server, Exchange, SharePoint, and some of the solutions that EMC has developed that we have brought to market. So in some of the data center challenges I heard over the last 3 days, the main themes continue to be the same as, as some of the things I've heard over the last couple of years, right? Your budgets are fairly flat. They're not getting any bigger, yet you've been asked to do far more than you were doing before, right? There is increased business demands. You're simply, your workload is getting bigger. Business units are getting more demanding, and things need to be streamlined for you to be able to catch up to that, right? So there is really no option for you to be reactive to a lot of these business demands. You need to really empower yourself to be proactive and begin to automate some of those tasks. We'll talk about that substantially. And also, one of the things that is very obvious, I think we all know, the rate of growth in our data centers, especially in data, is the relentless growth of information out there. So things are getting bigger, things are only getting more complicated, and so you need to also be able to address that. Escalating complexity. I've already talked about the fact that in a private cloud, you're going to have your compute, your connectivity, your storage, a whole bunch of different technologies coming in together. And traditionally, you've had management and monitoring technologies that would, in a singular fashion, manage each individual component, and that's not an option anymore. You need to be able to have a single tool that provides the monitoring and management capability for you to be able to look after your private cloud. So we'll talk about that, and Gary is also going to give us a very cool overview in terms of some of the integration we have with System Center today. And also, above and beyond, right, one of the things that you need to do is maintain the service levels. I mean, that's the key, right? You need to be able to meet the business requirements of whatever it is that you've been asked to do within, the IT infrastructure that you're leading. From an administrator and application admin challenges point of view, they're slightly different, but yet they're still fairly significant and important, right? One of the things that I've heard is, the lack of insight into the data center assets and storage resources. You need to be able to have a view into not only the storage, but also, into all of the other technologies that you have within your environment. And so we need to be able to develop and provide it with that capability. And we're also going to be talking about some of the things that EMC is providing to address that one particular challenge. In fact, some of the demos that we're going to be providing you today will talk through all of the challenges that we're seeing in this one particular page. Non-trivial storage provisioning, lengthy, complicated procedures for everyday type tasks. We need to be able to make things easy. We need to be able to have all of these things integrated, have a level of automation, and be able to just simply have that ease of use to it, right? And so we're also going to be showing you some demos that will address that one particular challenge. And more importantly, requiring multiple resources to manage heterogeneous environments. Again, I talked about how is that so many different technologies are coming together into a private cloud that you simply need to have one single point of monitoring and management to be able to address and have an insight into some of those private clouds that we're all deploying, as the convergence of all of the different technologies are finally coming together within your environments. So how do we deploy, our Microsoft private cloud? There's an element of, we need to leverage automation. For any of you who may have just attended the previous session downstairs about the power of automation with PowerShell commands, it was very compelling to hear how customers are automating A through Z type tasks within their data centers. And one of the things that I saw as part of that presentation is how you can reduce the provision complexity. We're also going to be talking about that one particular topic, and it's going to be a key factor in the future of your private clouds, as one of the things that you will need to face is the automation of provisioning in a very effective fashion. Also, implementing intelligent monitoring policies. You need to be able to address all elements of your environment. So I already talked about that, it's several times already, but having that and having that element be integrated with every single component from a technology perspective in your data center is also going to be very important. And so having an efficient management layer that allows you to have visibility into your deployments is going to be very important. And you'll see here that all of those different components are coming together. So automated provisioning, intelligent monitoring, efficient management over your assets is going to be absolutely key. So automation, it really simplifies some of the operations within your data center. But one of the things that automation will do for you is that it enables you to address growth in a more efficient manner. So how many of you have been asked to do more with less, more quickly or quicker? And I think it's something that we're all facing. With automation, you're going to be able to be proactive in terms of being able to deploy some of your assets within your data center. And one of the things that it will provide is a level of standards within your IT procedures, as well as begin to eliminate some of the errors or the human error factors within the deployments and having a more consistent deployment methodology within your provisioning. And so the tools that you need to leverage will also need to decrease the management cost. And one of the things that Gary is going to show us is how is it that we're going to be able to automate not only basic provisioning, but also address some of the mission-critical applications and have an end-to-end process that will address all of the provisioning mechanisms that you need to have in place. Automation also allows you to have better management and with more complex deployments. And I've said this already, you're going to be able to do more with less, right? And I think that that's the goal that a lot of us need to do and some of the challenges that we're facing today, right? So Gary, can you give us a quick overview in terms of what is it that you're doing and your team is doing to facilitate some of that integration, and perhaps a little bit of a view into the tool set that you guys have created out there?
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you. EMC made significant investments into Microsoft integration. It's not only the system center, the app-aware, storage provisioning. For example, we have deep integration into System Center Virtual Machine Manager via our SMIS providers. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, what you could do. Probably some of you are already using them. And we also have the PowerShell commandlets, rich PowerShell commandlets that let you automate your storage provisioning tasks. They're not only storage aware, they're also the host and virtualization aware as well. So you should be able to orchestrate your workflows using those PowerShell commandlets. Those who like GUIs, we will have Microsoft Management Console snap-in, which will let you, with few wizards, with few clicks, you will be able to do end-to-end storage provisioning. I'll show that a little bit later down the road. With respect to System Center integration, I think we have SVVMM integration with SMIS, and also the System Center Operations Manager management packs allow you to monitor the health of our EMC arrays, right? And also with System Center Orchestrator integration packs, we will let you orchestrate your workflows, deploy your total data center. Roberto? Thank you. How EMC addresses these challenges? Lack of insight into storage resources. Roberto talked about that. So how many of you look at Windows Server Manager or some other tools were wondering, where is this disk coming from? You know its capacity, et cetera, but you don't know where it is coming from. It's direct attached, SAN, if SAN, which SAN, right? So which array, which LUN, which storage pool, what are its characteristics? So ESI will allow you to get that status of the devices, and also server to storage mapping. And it is also application aware. And we also have, viewing is good. You can see the mappings all the way to your application, storage to application. But how about provisioning of the new storage and our new applications themselves? So we have easy to use wizards, create, connect, and both for block and file protocols, SMB protocol as well. Right? And one other challenge is provisioning storage and applications together. Right? So how many of you had to deploy an application, for example, SQL, SharePoint, or Exchange with storage provisioning? Anybody? Great. So can anybody take a guess how many number of panes of glass you have to go through to provision an application? For example, in this case, a SharePoint web application, it's about 7 panes of glass. First, you will go to your element managers, array element managers, to create your LUNs to your best practices, to the storage best practices. You will now doing masking or unmasking and configuring your fabric, etc. And the next step is go to your Windows server and find that storage, prepare it, and partition, format, drive letter, mount point. If it's virtualized, you have to go to some other tools. And then you finally have to create your SQL Server content database, and also, finally, the SharePoint web application. You are going through multiple panes of glass. What if you had to do that very quickly? With EMC's integration, you can. Multiple applications, right? So SQL, SharePoint, Exchange, it's easy to provision storage end-to-end, and that conforms to the best practices of that particular storage array.
Got it. So, Kerry, what you're saying is that we're going to be able to not only provision storage from a pure storage system point of view, but we're also can incorporate your mission-critical application and be able to do an end-to-end. Instead of jumping through 7 different GUIs, you can facilitate that within the framework that EMC has created.
That's right, Roberto.
So can we take a look at demo? I like to see and I like to show how that works. And so can you take us through that?
Sure. Thank you. Let's see how EMC integration into Windows provides you capabilities to actually provision SharePoint end-to-end. All you are doing in this demo is pointing EMC tools via PowerShell commandlets or MMC snap-ins to a particular storage array as well as your SharePoint form. you can discover your storage resources from application all the way to the storage. Not only the discovery, you will be able to create a new SharePoint web application. Here you provide your IIS website name for your SharePoint web app. You will provide your application security pool settings. And then you will be able to pick the storage. The content database name. And you are doing all this without going through multiple panes of glass. Drive letters, mount points, even if your SharePoint is virtualized, you should still be able to achieve this workflow. You're picking the storage array, the pool, review your details, click done. At the end of it, you have a SharePoint web application provision, including your content databases and SharePoint site. This way, you are eliminating multiple panes of glass. And by the way, this can be automated, right? So this can be automated and repeatable any number of times.
Awesome. So, Gary, that's actually the next question I was going to ask you is, so presumably as you're deploying your private cloud, you're not just going to be deploying 1 or 2 servers, but you may be asked to deploy 10 to 20 servers a day, maybe even more. What is it that we can do to accelerate and to automate the provisioning of the storage into the private cloud? Is there any integration that we have with perhaps some of the System Center tools that Microsoft has made available?
Sure. That's System Center Orchestrator, Roberto, right? So how many of you know about System Center Orchestrator? That's good number. So how many of you deployed System Center Orchestrator? Okay. Planning to deploy is good too, right? So I presumably all of you have EMC arrays, right? So optimistic being my part, but that's what I want. So we have System Center Orchestrator integration, but we'll talk about that. But first, you already know this. System Center Orchestrators allows you to deploy your private cloud, orchestrate the workflows within your data center with the help of various integration pack. You can automate your application provisioning, run some various commands, copying, moving files, email notifications, any task which you have activities, you can automate them. Workflow managements like create VMs, LUNs, adding this to VMs, etc. And it also integrates with System Center Service Manager to actually take remedial action if required. So what does EMC's integration into System Center Orchestrator look like? You will be interested in storage provisioning with Orchestrator when you are looking at EMC. That is mainly about how rapidly you can provision storage and how repeatable you can make that process. We have various activities. For example, some of them I listed on this slide. This workflow will let you combine these activities into various other workflows and whatever you want to do. Deploying an application, just for example, what we have seen, the SharePoint deployment, that kind of a workflows you can achieve via System Center Orchestrator, our integration pack.
Got it. So, Gary, do you think you can show us perhaps something that you can do within System Center Orchestrator and the EMC integration that we have? Is there a demo for that?
Sure.
Excellent.
Demos are always good. Oh, by the way, before we do that, we have the rich PowerShell commandlets as well, Roberto. We should be able to take advantage of them. But before that, let me go to the demo.
Excellent. So what you're saying with the PowerShell commandlet capability is that you have the choice of doing this through a graphical interface as well as be able to script some automation and accelerate the deployment of certain provisionings within the data center.
Exactly. If you don't have the activities that are needed, you can use PowerShell commandlets either in System Center Orchestrator or anywhere else. You can script to your heart, right? Let's look at this demo. It's a simple workflow, creation of a cluster disk. What it requires, provisioning a cluster disk resource within a Windows failover cluster. Let's say, for example, you want to create a clustered shared volume. What are the number of steps you have to go through if you are doing that manually? Again, multiple panes of glass. You need to go to the storage array, and you need to actually go to each and every cluster node, and you need to know its initiators, right? So each cluster node will have multiple initiators. You need to actually create host registrations or masking views or initiator groups on the array, and then you need to provision storage and present that storage, unmask those LUNs to your cluster. Once it's presented to the cluster, you are actually going to, right? So you need to prepare the disk inside the cluster. And then finally, you will make it a cluster shared volume. And with all those things, with our integration into System Center Orchestrator, it's some bunch of activities you drag and drop, you string them together, okay? And you can repeat it any number of times you want. Not only our integration pack activities, you could combine other activities. For example, if you have an activity from your favorite switch vendor, you can combine them to manage your fabric, storage, and applications and everything else. In this example, what we are doing is dragging and dropping some of the activities, like connecting to a host or a cluster. And in this example, we are connecting to a VNXC storage array. We're creating a new LUN, right? So we're saying we'll present that LUN to the cluster. We're going to initialize the cluster disk and create a cluster file system. String them together, provide some input parameters. For example, how big of a LUN you want, what is your cluster disk resource name, etc. This is where you provide that input. And this is, by the way, it's a runbook designer, and you can test it right away. Save it, run, should be running. Few minutes, you have a cluster disk resource ready. Provision. So what do you think? How powerful it is, right? So with PowerShell integration, you can actually check whether that cluster disk actually is created or not as well. That's what we are doing in this example, right? So we're using our ESI, EMC's PowerShell toolkit to actually see whether we have actually achieved that goal or not. That's the end of the demo, Roberto.
Excellent. So, Gary, so far, some of the things that you have showed is basic provisioning, automation, to some degree, integration with the application in terms of provisioning some of the storage within your environment, and also the different options that we have in terms of how do we use all of this technology, where you have your PowerShell commandlets, you also have a graphical interface. And one of the things that I like to talk about now is, what brings it all together. So EMC has developed an application, a solution called EMC Storage Integrator, or ESI. You may have heard Gary allude to this as ESI. And what it does, what it provides is essentially that, right? It provides a way for you to be able to access all of these different technology elements within a graphical interface, or if you choose so, or if you are more inclined to using PowerShell commands, you can also do that as well. Within this solution, you can also do things around, and we have broad support for Hyper-V And if you have a multiple hypervisor strategy within your data center, we also have support for other hypervisors. So we extended to a lot of different technologies, and we also have support for Windows Server 2008 and 2012, virtual and physical. So this is our way that we're beginning to bring all of the different technologies together. We're mitigating and automating some of the challenges that you had in the past. And as you can see, now instead of jumping through 7 different GUIs to do one single task, you basically have one single frame of work that can do end-to-end automation provisioning within your data center. And so that will provide you with some time savings and also be able to provide predictability around your service level within your data center. So it's very compelling. Some of the ESI key components, we have already talked about some of those. We talked about the GUI, the PowerShell toolkit integration, and we have already seen some of the things that we can do within System Center Orchestrator. But one of the things that we talked about really early on during the presentation is the fact that as all of these different technology elements come together within your private cloud, you will need to have the capability to have a good management and monitoring layer within your environment. And so the one thing that we haven't talked about as of yet is the fact that ESI does integrate with System Center Operations Manager, and we have a management pack that also facilitates the monitoring and management over your assets. We're going to have a demo of that in just a few minutes. But one of the things that we also like to talk about, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Gary, is some of the integration and some of the things that we're doing with SCVMM. As you're deploying your Microsoft Hyper-V private cloud, you will also need a level of integration with that hypervisor, and you can give us a quick overview of that.
Sure, Roberto, thank you. So System Center Virtual Machine Manager. So most of you already played with it, know how to use it, what it is, but I'll just reiterate what you can achieve with it. So it mainly works with respect to storage provisioning. It needs SMIS providers, right? So SMIS is a standard. EMC is committed to standards, and we have SMIS providers for our arrays, which will let you integrate your workflows within System Center Virtual Machine Manager. With our integration with our SMIS providers, SVVMM will let you discover EMC storage arrays. You can categorize pools into various levels of service, and you will be able to configure storage LUNs. That means provision. We have shown you various ways to do that. One is using PowerShell, using MMC snap-ins, using SVVMM as well. And with SVVMM and our integration, you will be able to also rapidly provision the virtual machines along with the storage. So it's basically providing you enabling your private cloud, Microsoft private cloud. So it will let you, SVVMM lets you do the host management, Hyper-V ESXi, and VM provisioning via self-service portal. And our SMIS providers enables you to do all these workflows with EMC, VNX, and VMAX platforms.
Okay, so we're now to the point that now we need to be able to understand a little bit more in terms of the things that we need to do with managing and monitoring your environment. Obviously, we have already talked about the fact that we do support System Center Operations Manager. And so, Gary, take us through some of the integration points we have. And of course, I'm going to ask you to do a demo as well. But I think it's important to understand as you're bringing all of the different heterogeneous components within your private cloud that you're going to need to have that capability. And System Center Operations Manager has inherent monitoring capability, but we extend that to the storage, and we're able to give you an end-to-end view into your assets within your data center. So take us through that.
Thank you, Roberto. Certainly. So we heard from customers again and again. So to rapidly scale their data centers, to rapidly manage their data centers, private clouds. It's very important for the system center is the center of the strategy, right? So EMC embraced that. We talked about, Roberto talked about how EMC does that with automated provisioning, and also, so once you deployed your applications and your infrastructure, it's very critical to monitor the health, right? So System Center Operations Managers enables you to do that. It supports storage reporting, host utilization, and various management packs from various vendors. It supports application monitoring as well, besides other metrics, right? So OS health monitors. And how does EMC's integration will fit into this one? It's very storage centric, right? So you have invested in your VNX, VMAX, and other EMC arrays. You want to monitor your infrastructure in the data center along with other components. Storage is very important for you. So EMC's SCOM management packs will give you the ability to monitor roll-up health model from all the logical components as well as physical components. So when we talk about, Roberto is going to certainly ask me to show a demo again. So we'll show that demo. But you can see the list of the components we are monitoring and whether they're healthy, unhealthy, critical, warning. And also, it provides you the various knowledge-based article. If there is a warning or a critical state, what you need to do to remedy that, to fix that problem.
Why don't we do the demo, right?
Thank you, Roberto.
Let's kick that off.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, this is that was if you can click back.
Yes.
I think we bypassed one slide. This is briefly a graphical representation of what our integration is with System Center Operations Manager. And again, we're going to be able to understand the health of the array, some of the space utilization, some of the alerts that you can, I guess, customize within that framework.
Right.
But I think it's going to be much better if we show it through the demo.
Sure.
And why don't we
Certainly.
take it through the next step here? By the way, I do have one more request, but that will come right after the demo.
Okay. This demo is a little fuzzy. Hopefully, you can make it out. So, how many of you have seen used System Center Operations Manager, right? So you deployed this. How many of you have EMC arrays? Okay. So certainly after this, if you are not using this one, you want to better try this out. So it gives you the health information of your storage infrastructure. And some of our customers already deployed it, and they received alerts that, hey, my disk is failing. And they were able to go and figure out what's wrong and take remedial action, right? So it gives you a consolidated view of alerts. By the way, our integration is taking advantage of the System Center Operations Manager, various features that are available in there. So you can actually configure various things that we publish. You can do the overrides, various parameters. And our integration is very, very scalable architecture. So as if you know, our VMAX arrays can have up to 65,000 LUNs. You can monitor all of them. If you have 100 VMAX arrays, you're a big enterprise, you should still be able to architect a solution to monitor all those 100 VMAX arrays with EMC integration. So you can get a top-down view of your environment if you are into the topology views. You can see it's a roll-up health model. So when I briefly mentioned what are we going to monitor, we're going to monitor physical as well as logical components. When I say physical components, all the way from your CPUs, storage processors, if you have a VMAX, we'll monitor the engines and the directors, front-end ports, back-end ports, and also the batteries and power supplies as well, right? So any of those components can go wrong, and you need to know about them. How about the logical components? Logical components meaning your storage pools, your LUNs, and also your unmasking views. What's going wrong with your unmasking views? You can figure out by looking into your SCOM, System Center Operations Manager console. You should be able to receive the alerts. And with various overrides, customizations, you can even play with your monitoring thresholds. For example, capacity monitoring. In our storage pools capacity monitoring, we will track the allocated capacity in our thinly provisioned storage pools, and we will generate alerts for you so you know what to do when situation comes. And interesting thing is System Center enables you to do end-to-end. That means you receive an alert via System Center Operations Manager, feed it into System Center Service Manager to receive a service, to create a service request, then create a runbook on the System Center Orchestrator and take a remedial action.
Excellent. So with this capability, Gary, do you need to jump from one GUI to another for you to be able to also monitor your servers and your applications, or is it within the same capability that System Center Operations Manager give you? I saw that you basically don't need to jump from GUI to GUI
exactly.
to do that anymore.
So that's what System Center Operations Manager, that's a good question, Roberto. Few of my customers asked us, hey, I have an application, I have a virtual machine, or I have this physical machine that is using storage from EMC arrays. I would like to know that application is having some issues. For example, we have a SharePoint application, and it has a content database, and it is using EMC storage. How do I know it is something wrong with my SharePoint application because something wrong with the storage? It's all about roll-up health models. SCOM enables you to stitch all various management packs together to actually generate this kind of alerting mechanism in a single pane of glass.
Got it. So within the product that we have developed, and you're leading, of course, you're providing provisioning, you're providing to some degree application integration, automation, monitoring, and management. How much does it cost?
Good part is how much you would like to pay. Right? $0, that's what it costs. So it's available for free on EMC Support Zone or PowerLink.
So you can just basically go to emc.com, download the management packs and also the ESI software, yes, and enable that capability within your data center. So again, some of the best practices as you are deploying your private cloud is you need to nail down the automation. You need to be able to provide some sort of policies within all of the tasks of provisioning that you have. And I think what ESI does, it basically provides that as an end-to-end offering. And so you've already talked about the fact that it provides the physical component health monitors, the same thing for all of your logical components. And also you're looking after some of the capacity monitor. Exactly. So from that point of view, one of the things that we have done is giving you a really good end-to-end view into all of your data center assets. And guess what? It's not even 5 cents like the ad says. It's basically free. So you can just go download it out there. And so when you look at the elements coming together from our integration point of view, and this just happens to be one of the reference architectures that we have put together, you'll notice that you have multiple arrays here. I think Giri has already alluded to the fact that a lot of the things that we have done will support the VNX and the VMAX storage platforms. So we created an environment here where you had a couple of different platforms here, different storage models on the floor, and we had our basic integration with SCVMM. You also have your System Center Orchestrator that is facilitating the automation of some of the assets within the data center. And you also have your monitoring layer with System Center Operations Manager, the ESI service facilitating that capability. And at this point, one of the things that you can do is begin to automate not only the deployment of some of your virtual machines within your environment, but all of the related storage that goes along with it, all completely automated to some degree within the capability that ESI can provide. So I talked about some of the reference architectures that EMC has developed, and this is one example out of many that we have developed. In some of the reference architectures that we have created, we have built them within an offering called EMC vSpecs, where all of the elements from the storage to the server to the connectivity have all come together to be validated into a proven reference architecture. And in this one particular example, one of the things that we have done is automate the operations with ESI, from adding the storage, bringing some of the elements of System Center, to giving you the empowerment to do some of these things on your own, right? So that's what it's all about. You be able to have some insight into some of the assets and the capabilities that traditionally you didn't have in the past. So if you will, if you think about it, now you will have far more control and insight into some of the things that you need to be able to forecast, the things that you need to be proactive about, and suddenly you're taking yourself out of the reactive seat of things, and you're able to now get ahead of the business units and be able to react to things. In some of the examples that Gary gave, specifically around the System Center Orchestrator, you can create templates and you can reuse them to automate some of the data center provisioning assets over and over, and from that point of view, you can accelerate your deployments. Am I correct?
That's correct, Roberto. And one important thing is you need to know is once you create your workflows and are the PowerShell scripts, they work across all your EMC arrays. The same script, same workflow should work similarly across EMC arrays. You had created one for Vmax, you brought in a VNX into the shop, it works. There you go, Robert. Got it.
So at the beginning, when I introduced myself, I talked about the fact that I work for the group that develops and validates these reference architectures. If you go to the net and you use your favorite search engine and you search for everything Microsoft at EMC, you will find over 460 white papers and reference architectures that will give you a sample of some of the things that we do around not only the System Center integration, but everything else we're doing around mission-critical applications. So the whole idea here is that we prove them ahead of their GA so that you don't have to do this and figure it out and see if they work. We also try to simplify the deployment by developing tools such as the ones that you have seen over the last 45 minutes and make sure that we can accelerate that deployment, make it efficient, that's what it's all about, and making it very flexible. And so this is a sample of how EMC vSpecs is bringing all of that together into one single reference architecture. And again, if you go into the internet, search for everything Microsoft at EMC, you'll be able to find all of these different offerings out there. So from an EMC for Microsoft Private Cloud's point of view, I think we have already talked about the challenges. We have also talked about some of the technology delivery components that we have created. And I think the one thing that we haven't talked about is our capability in terms of providing consultant services, all of the good stuff that glues your challenges and the technology together within your data center. Just good to know that we have a very strong capability in terms of being able to help you figure all of these things out and help you through your deployment. And of course, the why for EMC at Microsoft is the marketing slide that I was asked to talk about. I think if you have seen all of the integration that Giri has been able to develop, then that also is not just limited to System Center. There is a significant amount of work that we have done with Microsoft in developing reference architectures for SQL, Exchange, SharePoint, and a whole bunch of other things. And a lot of the integration that we've had with Windows Server 2012 as well as with Hyper-V, it really speaks for the kind of things that EMC and Microsoft have done together. With that, I believe our presentation has come to an end. Don't forget about the evaluation. I also put a card on your seats that gives you the website where all of our reference architectures are located. And at this point, we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Yes.
And if I could ask you, if you have any questions, come to the microphone because the session is being recorded. I think it's on. Yeah.
Okay. For your SCOM management packs, I saw overall health volume utilization. What about, does it also pull in IOP and latency monitoring?
Good question. So we don't have that capability right now. So we are monitoring the health of array. Performance metrics are under consideration. So we'd like to know exactly from you what are the top 3 performance metrics that you would like to collect, IOPS, CPU utilization, whatever the things, and would like to kind of include that in our next integration update.
What about ODX support?
ODX support is available on our arrays, on Vmax and VNX arrays, and I'm not sure which arrays you are using. We have that available, and you should give it a test drive.
Got it. In fact, one of the things that we have done when you go into our website, which is located in this in that scan, you'll be able to find some of the integration around the ODX. There's some literature there that we have posted. So
yeah, and also the thin provisioning support is also available. So the unmapped functionality that came out in Windows Server 2012 is available on VNX and Vmax arrays.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So the question was, is there a way to run a report around all of the arrays that are used in or have insight into System Center Operations Manager? Is that the question? Okay.
So that needs to be, some customization needs to be done in the System Center Operations Manager. Right out of the box, our integration or management packs will allow you to get the storage-centric view. But you will be able to get each LUN, its WWN, its identifier, and its initiators. Using that information, you will be able to correlate. For example, if you have a fabric management pack, knowing which initiators have access to which LUN, you should be able to put together that information. EMC is not doing that yet. That's something that can be done. So, but the capability exists in System Center Operations Manager to do that right now. As of today, you need to stitch multiple management packs together. Question back there.
One on the back.
Is there any plans to add Isilon to that?
So any plans to add Isilon to ESI?
Isilon is in the roadmap. I cannot talk about the timeline right now without my product manager here. So it's their job. But I'll take your card and information, and I'll certainly get an answer for you, right? So Isilon and yeah, right now what we support is VNX arrays, Vmax arrays. VNX, when we talk about both block and file, that we monitor the data movers and the control stations, etc., and also the Vmax, DMX, and CX4 arrays. Yes.
Got it.
So
I need to repeat the question
yes, go ahead.
because it's being recorded. So the question was, is there any plans to integrate some of the alerts that are coming out of System Center into the functionality that may be within the storage system to perhaps address a capacity issue and have the storage system address that as an end-to-end respond to the alert?
It's a good question. It's the alerts will get pushed into the SCOM. And also EMC arrays have, right, so the capabilities to do the dial home functionality like you already mentioned about. I just need to kind of think about how we need to stitch that together. Is there a correlation that needs to happen? This alert that was sent in there. But right now, those are two separate entities right now. So even if you haven't installed or deployed the management packs, still that capability will function without it. If you turn that off and you don't want any dial home functionality, even the management pack alerting will still, I mean, if you deploy management packs, it will be there. Right now, they are not combined, but something that I need to think about what we need to do in that space. But I'll take your requirements on that one.
That's great feedback. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In one of your slides, you had a backup as an option. You didn't speak much about that. Can you tell me more about that, and in specific with Avamar? And if the SCOM management, I have to learn the new SCOM management pack is available for Avamar as well.
So that's a good question again. So backup, I think EMC has various backup solutions. Avamar is another great solution we have. We have a networker suite of products, and that support Hyper-V backups as well. We have integration into Data Protection Manager as well through our VSS providers. And we also have Replication Manager, or also called AppSync, allows you to protect your various Microsoft applications, SQL, Exchange, etc. So with respect to the management packs, Avamar is something that we need to work on. So Avamar and data domain, whatever that alerting capability that needs to happen. Right now it is not there. It is something that we are looking at.
Got it. So just to be able to understand that correctly, would your request be to incorporate some of the data protection within the ESI framework? For example, be able to take something that you just provisioned and also be able to add a policy of protection to it? Was that the question, though?
That would be nice.
Yeah.
My specific question was more about alerting.
Okay.
If the
Backup failed.
Also to see which runs or which data is actually backed up. And if it fails, you automatically get an alert saying it failed.
Okay. So
Looking at the alert, you have so much you can monitor your applications, your compute, your networking, and maybe even backup. That would be nice. So
all right.
kind of ask everything, all the alerts come from.
So to that point, there is a solution we have. It's called Data Protection Advisor that does something very similar to what you're describing. However, it's not integrated into what we have been discussing today, but it will proactively be able to understand some of your high availability components and technologies, and it will be able to tell you the health of the current backup mechanisms that you have. If there is, for whatever reason, a lack of ability to meet your backup windows and that sort of thing, it will take historical data and be able to provide that back to you. So if you stick around, I'll give you the name of that, but it's called Data Protection Advisor. Oh, you do that?
Today we have so many consoles.
Got it.
Yes.
So incorporated into this would be actually a really good thing to have. Okay.
Yeah, you will
Point
be
well
monitoring
taken.
your Microsoft infrastructure. You like to know from the backup perspective
Yeah.
what.
I want my NOC to have one console.
Yeah.
And I think Storm could be the console.
And we're trying to go in that direction, so that's awesome feedback. That will certainly
Yes.
bring it back to the product management. Yeah, I've heard that from a couple other clients as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're good. I think lunch is ready downstairs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.